Have you ever looked at a massive, incredibly detailed 3D Lego castle and thought about how much space it takes up? You have the towers, the walls, the little drawbridge. It is undeniably a three-dimensional object. But if you take a photograph of it, suddenly all that complex 3D information is flattened onto a 2D piece of paper or a screen. Your brain looks at that flat image and effortlessly rebuilds the 3D castle in your mind.
It is a perfect illusion, really. And that simple act of taking a photo actually mirrors one of the most mind-bending concepts in modern physics, the holographic principle. The idea that all the information contained in a three-dimensional volume can actually be perfectly described by the two-dimensional boundary surrounding it. But what if we did not stop there? What if we took that 2D photograph of reality and crushed it down even further?
That is exactly where things go from strange to absolutely surreal, crushing it down from 2D to 1D. We are talking about taking the entire universe, with all its depth, height, width, and time, and compressing it into a single, infinitely long, one-dimensional thread.
Precisely. In physics, this is sometimes explored as the one-dimensional representation of reality. Think about the device you might be using right now. The most complex, hyper-realistic video game or virtual reality simulation is, at its absolute core, just a massive string of zeros and ones sitting on a hard drive. It is a one-dimensional line of code. The theory we are diving into today suggests that our entire multiverse might operate exactly the same way, scrambled and encoded on a single, 1D straight line.
So, if I am understanding this correctly, everything we experience, the coffee I drank this morning, the stars in the sky, the chair I am sitting in, is just the decoded output of a cosmic zip file.
That is a brilliant way to put it. We are living inside the unzipped file. But that brings up an immediate, glaring question. If reality is just a string of data on a 1D line, how does it become the 3D universe we actually live in? A hard drive full of zeros and ones does not just magically project a movie onto a screen all by itself. You need hardware. You need a mechanism to read and display that data.
Right. You need a projector. If you have a 2D holographic film, you cannot just hold it up to the room light and see the 3D image. You have to shine a very specific type of laser through it to unfold the image into 3 dimensions. So, in this cosmic scenario, what is the laser? What is shining through our 1D line of code to project this massive universe?
The theory points to something called a higher dimension force. You can think of it exactly like a cosmic projector. This force interacts with a 1D line, but it does not change the line itself. Just like a movie projector's light does not alter the physical celluloid of the film passing through it. Instead, this higher dimensional force causes minuscule fluctuations, or ripples, along the 1D thread.
And those ripples are the projection?
Exactly. The force reads the encoded data and projects a reconstruction of reality into a higher dimensional space. We are the projection. The physical laws, the matter, the energy, the passage of time, all of it is just the interplay of these ripples being broadcast into the space we inhabit.
That is deeply unsettling, but also incredibly elegant. It makes you wonder, though, about the sheer scale of this 1D thread. If it contains the code for our entire universe, it must be unimaginably long. But physics rarely stops at just our universe anymore. Are we talking about a thread that holds the data for just our reality? Or is it bigger than that?
Oh, it is vastly bigger. To understand the capacity of this 1D line, we have to look at string theory. String theory suggests that there is not just one way to build a universe. There is a landscape of possible universes, each with its own unique set of physical laws, constants, and properties. And the math suggests there are roughly 10 to the power of 500 possible versions of the universe.
10 to the power of 500. That is a 1 followed by 500 zeros. That number is so large it makes the number of atoms in our observable universe look like a rounding error.
It is an incomprehensible figure. And this theory proposes that the 1D line is exactly long enough to hold all of it. It is the ultimate cosmic library. Every single possible code for reality, every variation of the multiverse, exists on this infinitely dense, one-dimensional thread.
So somewhere on that line is the code for a universe where gravity pushes instead of pulls, and somewhere else is the code for a universe exactly like ours, except I decided to wear a blue shirt today instead of a black one.
Exactly. It is all there, scrambled together in this infinite sequence of data. But the word scrambled is key here, because if you were to somehow look at this 1D line, you would not see neatly organized folders labeled Universe A and Universe B, so it would look like absolute chaos, pure, unadulterated noise.
Which brings us to the next massive hurdle. If the blueprint of everything is just a chaotic, scrambled line of data, how does the universe make sense of it? How do you extract a star, or a planet, or a human being out of infinite noise?
We need a mathematical blender, or more accurately, a mathematical unblender. In mathematics and physics, there is a brilliant tool called a Fourier transform.
I have heard of that in the context of audio engineering and signal processing. It is how computers isolate different frequencies of sound, right?
Precisely. But let's use a more delicious analogy. Imagine you have a beautifully blended fruit smoothie. It is just a uniform pink liquid. If you look at it, you cannot tell what is in it. But a Fourier transform is like a magical machine that can look at that pink liquid and instantly tell you, this contains exactly 3 strawberries, half a banana, and 42 blueberries. It deconstructs the complex mixture back into its fundamental ingredients.
So the smoothie in our universe is the scrambled, chaotic information on the 1D line.
Yes, and the ingredients are what we call identity stem waves. These are the absolute basic building blocks of matter and energy. By applying the mathematical trick of a Fourier transform, essentially winding these chaotic signals around a circle to find where they resonate, we can isolate the hidden underlying patterns.
Winding signals around a circle? That sounds like trying to tune a radio by spinning the dial until you catch a clear station out of the static.
That is a perfect analogy. Most things in the universe play nicely by these rules. When you wind their signals, their frequency matches their natural vibration. They resonate. They form the stable matter and energy we interact with every day. The Fourier transform pulls them out of the cosmic smoothie, and they become the building blocks of our reality.
But I am guessing it is not all perfectly stable, because if everything just hummed along in perfect harmony, nothing would ever change. There would be no dynamic universe, no evolution, no us. There has to be a catalyst, right? Something that disrupts the perfect math.
You hit the nail on the head. There is a rebel in this cosmic system, and that rebel is helium.
Helium? The stuff we put in party balloons? How is that the rebel of the multiverse?
It sounds funny, I know. But in the context of this theory, helium's frequency behaves very differently from the rest of the fundamental elements. While everything else hums along at its natural frequency, the theory suggests that helium's frequency is multiplied by a massive factor. We are talking nearly 300 million times its expected rate.
That is a catastrophic level of deviation. If everything else is playing a gentle waltz, helium is blasting heavy metal at maximum volume.
Exactly. In physics, we call this a symmetry-breaking event. Imagine a perfectly balanced, beautiful crystal. It is flawless, frozen, and completely still. Now imagine if one single atom inside that crystal suddenly starts vibrating millions of times faster than all the atoms around it. What happens to the crystal?
It shatters. The structure cannot hold that kind of localized, intense energy. It would explode.
And that shattering is what we perceive as the Big Bang.
Wait, so the Big Bang was not just a random explosion out of nowhere? It was the shattering of a perfectly encoded, frozen 1D state?
That is the profound implication here. We often think of the early universe as a dense, hot singularity. But this theory flips that on its head. It suggests the pre-universe was a Bose-Einstein condensate, a state of matter so cold and dense that particles lose their individual identities and behave as a single quantum wave. It was a cold, perfectly still, 1D encoded state.
A frozen zip file.
Yes, a frozen zip file. And the symmetry breaking of helium, that one rebel frequency going into hyperdrive, was the spark. It shattered the crystal. It was an explosion of energy that literally defroze the universe. The chaotic, hot, expanding reality we live in today is the aftermath of that cosmic unzipping process.
That completely changes the way I look at the night sky. We are living inside the shattered fragments of a frozen, one-dimensional code. And the expansion of the universe is just the continued unfolding, the continued unzipping of that original data.
It is a humbling perspective. It forces us to ask what reality actually is. If everything around us, the heat of the sun, the cold of space, the complexity of human consciousness, is just the byproduct of a higher dimensional force reading a 1D line of data through a mathematical lens. What does that make us?
It makes us information. We are the music playing from a cosmic vinyl record, but we are convinced we are the orchestra. It really does blur the line between physics and philosophy. Because if we are just a projection, a Fourier transform of a 1D smoothie, does that diminish our experience? Or does it make it infinitely more beautiful?
I lean towards the latter. The fact that a single, one-dimensional thread can contain the blueprints for 10 to the power of 500 universes, and that a mathematical quirk, a rebel frequency, can shatter that frozen code to create a universe capable of looking back at itself and asking these very questions. That is the ultimate poetry of physics.
It is. It truly is. We spend so much time looking out into the vastness of 3D space, searching for meaning in the stars. But maybe the real secret of existence isn't out there in the expanse. Maybe it is hidden in the narrowest, smallest, most compressed space imaginable. A single line, waiting for the light to shine through.
And as long as that higher dimensional projector keeps running, our universe keeps expanding, keep computing, and keeps experiencing itself.
A beautiful thought to end on. The next time you look at a photograph, or a hard drive, or even a party balloon, remember you might just be looking at the secret mechanics of the multiverse. Until next time, keep wondering about the code behind the curtain.